Mr. Twinkles, I shudder even to think it, but I think it is time. It is time again to test our mettle, Mr. Twinkles. It is time to go into the YouTube comment section! Mr. Twinkles, somebody named the Last Hambro has apparently joined our organization and has added more content to our YouTube channel than either of us ever have. So let's see what else he has to say. On the video called Evolution Fails All By Itself, the Last Hambro had a lot of comments. So we're going to pick one at random. Ooh, he calls something the worst strawman I've seen so far. No, move them all into an environment where being a fish is useful and make them stay there. That's one of the worst strawmen. Okay, so that's his comment. Okay, now just to clarify, I'm talking about worms. And I'm talking about what does it take to get a population of worms to evolve into a population of fish. Okay, that's the metaphor, that's the part of the story I'm focusing on, just to discuss the different mechanisms of evolution to see if it would make it happen. So, here's my metaphor for what does it mean to change. Every single day, and I do that for 100 years. Is that going to make me a millionaire? No. That's why this fails, because genetic drift migration is literally just the moving of some existing plant or animal from one place to another. That's it. That's all. Why is it called genetic drift? Well, because the genes in that particular animal or plant are carried with it, so that its genes are now in the new location that it migrates to. But it's literally just physically moving them from point A to point B. And it doesn't matter how far away it is. You know, if this fish swims to the other side of the pond, that's migration. If he swims back, that's migration again. It's also genetic drift. Look, there's been a change. Is that the kind of change that'll turn worms into fish? If I took every worm on Earth and I moved them west 1,000 miles, would any of them be fish at the end of it? No! The fact that I even have to point these things out. So, genetic drift migration is always shown as an example of evolutionary change, but it is not a mechanism of evolution. Okay, so that's what he's referring to. Here we go. That's what he's referring to when he says, no, move all of them into an environment where being a fish is useful and make them stay there. That's one of the worst strawmans I've seen so far. So remember what I'm talking about, what he's responding to here. What I just said is if you take a population of worms and you move them 1,000 miles away, 10,000 miles, it doesn't matter, or move them 100 miles every day for 100 years, if you move them into an environment where being a fish is useful, does that turn them into fish? No, they're still worms. You can't get worms to become fish by putting them somewhere where it's useful to be a fish. Because here's the thing, if it's necessary to be a fish to survive in that environment, and you put the worms there, the worms die because they are not fish. So this isn't a straw man, this is just basic common sense. So if you take your worms, which are not fish, and you move them into an environment where being a fish is useful and make them stay there, they're still worms. That alone cannot make them turn into a fish, no matter how many generations they're there or how many generations you move them. It's like if I park my car on a helicopter landing pad, does that make it a helicopter? All right, what if I do it every day? I mean, it's a place where being a helicopter would be useful, right? Like, certainly if I parked it on a helicopter pad, that seems like a useful place to be a helicopter. All right, what if I take my car and I drive it into the ocean? Now it's going to be a submarine, right? No, I've just destroyed my car. Taking something and moving it to an environment where it'd be useful to be something else cannot make it that something else. So this comment is absurd. And of course, one of the most common accusations I get from people in the comments section is that it's a straw man. You'll note though, he's called it a straw man, but has not explained why it's a straw man, which always leaves me thinking, well, he probably doesn't know what a straw man is. He doesn't know what that term means. It's just something he heard on the internet, which makes him think, well, you're wrong, and this is something that smarty pants people say to tell you you're wrong. So I constantly are telling people, if you tell me I have presented a straw man, it's kind of your job to explain why it's a straw man. Because all you're doing is just slapping a label on there. I have no reason to think you know what it means. So he clearly didn't understand the point. The point was, by moving something, you're moving its location, you're changing its location, but that does not make the thing change. If I take worms and I move them from a place that's dry to a place where being a fish is useful, and they're capable of surviving, that's because the population was already capable of surviving in a very wet environment. They already had that in their genes, but it doesn't make them into a fish. If I put them somewhere where being a fish is useful, that doesn't change them. That movement it doesn't matter how long. Moving things can't make them change. And evolution is supposed to be the mechanism by which things change from one kind of thing into another kind of thing. Where did fish come from? They evolved from worms. Okay, well then evolution is the process by which worms turn into fish. But how do worms turn into fish? By moving them around? Mr. Twinkles, you got anything to add to that? The point is, number one, Hambro, you got to look up what a straw man is, because I'm guessing you don't know. I'm guessing you don't know what it means. And secondly, you got to watch my videos a little more carefully. I mean, props to you for actually putting in a time code and making some kind of reference to what I said, because that's a lot more work than most people tend to do in the comment section. But it showed that you had no idea what I was saying or why, and then you didn't really think about your response. Try to be nice. Just, all right, well, that's enough for now. Thanks for joining me, Mr. Twinkles, as we dive into the YouTube comments section. If you're going to leave comments, make sure they're good comments so we can give you good responses. And for Mr. Twinkles, myself, and all of us here at A Bit of Orange, just remember, Jesus loves you.